In a world gasping for its final breath under a merciless sun, the soil of Gilead cracked like bone, and a kingdom lay shattered in the shadows of apostasy until a man emerged whose voice shook the heavens and silenced the pride of kings. This was not just a story of a nomad. It was the arrival of the enigmatic Elijah the Tishbite, a lightning bolt of divine truth sent to ignite a spiritual revolution in a land drowning in idolatry. Imagine a prophet so powerful that even the clouds obeyed his command to dry the earth, yet so humble that he was fed by ravens in the lonely wilderness. From the terrifying fire of Mount Carmel to the awe-inspiring chariot of flames that eventually claimed him, Elijah's journey is an epic tapestry of miracles, raw courage, and the supernatural power of the living God. This is the ultimate confrontation between the light of the Creator and the darkness of ancient gods. Welcome to Bible Mysteries Africa, your portal into the deepest enigmas of the Word. If you crave the truth hidden within the sacred scriptures, hit that subscribe button right now, like this video to help us spread the word, and share this journey with those seeking light as we unveil the legendary fire of the prophets. In the blistering heart of the 9th century BC, under the unrelenting and scorching sun of Gilead, a land once lush, now gasping in a dry and arid embrace, a man emerged who was destined to become one of the most formidable and revered prophets in the entire tapestry of human history. His name was Elijah the Tishbite, a name that struck both awe and terror into the hearts of men. Elijah required no scrolls, no written chronicles, and no royal decrees for his fame to spread like a wildfire across the desert. His life was a living testament that spoke infinitely louder than the hollow deeds of the many kings who occupied gilded thrones. He arose as a blinding beacon of truth in an era where the kingdom of Israel had been plunged into the suffocating shadows of apostasy and pagan worship. Elijah's role in the divine architect's plan was absolute and unquestionable, a destiny etched into eternity as foretold in Malachi chapter 4, verse 5. Behold, I will send you the prophet Elijah before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes. This ancient prophecy echoed through the chambers of the faithful, who waited with bated breath for the return of this enigmatic messenger of God. Shrouded in mystery, his origins remained a puzzle. The Bible mentions Gilead, yet the silence surrounding his lineage only magnified the aura of a man who belonged more to the heavens than to the earth. If this deep dive into the hidden truths and supernatural teachings of the Bible moves your spirit, I invite you to support our mission at Bible Mysteries Africa by hitting the subscription button and activating the bell icon so you never miss our upcoming revelations. Elijah was far more than a man of mere words. His physical and spiritual endurance was legendary. 1 Kings chapter 17 verse 1 captures his fearless confrontation with King Ahab, where he boldly declared a devastating drought that would paralyze the nation. His vigor was so immense that he once famously outran Ahab's royal chariot from the heights of Mount Carmel all the way to Jezreel, a feat of supernatural stamina. His life was a breathtaking sequence of divine interventions. After defying the crown, God led him to the secluded brook Chariot, where, in a display of impossible provision, ravens brought him sustenance in the dead of the wasteland. When the brook finally surrendered to the heat, the divine hand guided him to Zarephath in Sidon. There, a widow, herself on the brink of starvation as whispered in Luke chapter 4 verse 26, became the custodian of a miracle. Elijah demonstrated that the God of Israel held dominion over all, as he ensured her jar of flour and jug of oil never ran dry. This journey reflects a profound parable of humility, as seen in Luke 17:8-10, showing that even the greatest prophet remains but a devoted servant. The narrative takes us from the desolate valleys of Gilead to the tense borders of Samaria, weaving a story of absolute obedience. In one striking symbolic encounter, 10 lepers, marginalized and decaying, cried out for mercy to Jesus, an event that mirrored Elijah's own mission of bringing healing to the outcasts. At Zarephath, the widow's faith was tested in the hottest fires when her son fell gravely ill and breathed his last. In a moment of raw human agony, she confronted Elijah, who, moved by a deep divine compassion, carried the boy to his upper room. Stretching himself over the lifeless body 3 times, Elijah's fervent cries pierced the heavens until the spirit of the child returned. This resurrection reaffirmed his holy mission, proving that God's mercy reaches into the deepest pits of suffering. As the drought reached its peak, the stage was set for Mount Carmel, the ultimate showdown between the living God and the silent idols of Baal, a moment that would change the course of history forever. Every miraculous episode, from the supernatural provision in the widow's house to the imminent thunderous confrontation on Mount Carmel, reveals a profound pattern of absolute dependence on God. This marked Elijah as one of the greatest prophets of Israel, a living testimony of divine power. While the land groaned under the weight of a severe, merciless drought, Ahab and Obadiah set out in a desperate final attempt to save the remaining royal flocks. They divided the scorched territory, searching for a single blade of grass. In the middle of this desolate wasteland, Obadiah unexpectedly encountered the enigmatic Elijah. Recognizing the prophet, Obadiah fell to the ground in reverence, yet his heart was gripped by a paralyzing fear. He knew Ahab had hunted Elijah across kingdoms, and delivering the news of his presence could mean instant death. Obadiah, a secret man of faith, revealed how he had risked his life to protect 100 prophets from the genocidal wrath of Jezebel. Despite his loyalty, the fear of royal reprisal was a heavy burden. Elijah, standing with unshakable authority, assured him, "I will surely present myself before the king today." This was more than a meeting. It was a prelude to a collision of worlds. When Ahab finally faced Elijah, he spat out an accusation, calling him the troubler of Israel. Elijah stood his ground, firing back that the true cause of the nation's agony was the king's own idolatry and rebellion. He then proposed a decisive, supernatural challenge. Gather all Israel and the 850 pagan prophets on Mount Carmel. It was time for the people to choose between the Lord or Baal. Before a massive, silent crowd, Elijah issued a direct ultimatum. "How long will you waver between 2 opinions?" The test was simple yet terrifying. 2 bulls, 2 altars, but no human fire. Only the God who answered with fire from heaven would be recognized as the true king. The prophets of Baal cried out until noon, slashing their bodies in a frenzied, bloody ritual, but the sky remained silent. Then Elijah stepped forward, rebuilt the broken altar with 12 stones, and drenched the sacrifice in water until the trenches overflowed. In a moment of sacred silence, he prayed. Suddenly, a pillar of divine fire exploded from the heavens, incinerating the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the dust. The people fell on their faces, shouting in one voice, "The Lord, He is God." Justice was swift as the pagan prophets were executed at the Kishon Brook. Elijah then climbed the peak of Carmel, prostrating himself in intense prayer. After 7 agonizing checks by his servant, a tiny, solitary cloud finally appeared on the horizon, signaling the end of the drought and the return of God's mercy. As the small cloud, no larger than a man's hand, ascended from the horizon of the Great Sea, it presaged a change that the scorched earth of Israel had forgotten existed. This tiny sign was the herald of a divine breakthrough, the rain that would finally shatter the 3-year curse of drought. Soon the azure sky was bruised with heavy charcoal clouds, and a torrential downpour fell upon the thirsty land, a tangible, rhythmic sign of God's overwhelming mercy and absolute power. However, the cosmic victory at Mount Carmel was not the end of the struggle. It was merely the spark for a new, more dangerous chapter. Jezebel, the iron-willed queen, was consumed by a demonic fury upon hearing of the defeat and execution of her 450 prophets. She sent a messenger to Elijah with a vow of blood, swearing by her gods that by the next day his life would be forfeited just as her prophets had been. This sudden threat pierced the armor of the man who had just called fire from heaven. Disheartened, exhausted, and gripped by a very human fear, Elijah abandoned the site of his greatest triumph and undertook a solitary, desperate flight towards Beersheba in Judah. Leaving his loyal servant behind, he pushed deeper into the unforgiving wilderness. Under the sparse shadow of a solitary broom tree, the great prophet collapsed, his spirit broken. "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life," he whispered into the burning wind, feeling the crushing weight of isolation. In this raw moment of vulnerability, Elijah revealed the humanity that connects him to us all, the struggle with hopelessness and the limits of mortal strength. But God does not abandon his servants in the dust. As Elijah slept in despair, a celestial visitor arrived. An angel of the Lord touched him, not with a rebuke, but with sustenance. Warm bread baked on coals and a jar of pure water. This was not merely physical food, it was a sign of the Father's relentless care. Refreshed twice by this heavenly manna, Elijah found the supernatural strength to journey 40 days and 40 nights across the jagged terrain until he reached Mount Horeb, the sacred mountain of God. There, shrouded in the silence of a cave, the prophet waited. The mountain shook as a mighty wind tore the rocks apart, followed by an earthquake that made the foundations of the earth tremble, and then a consuming fire. Yet the Lord was not in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire. Instead, there came a still, small voice, a gentle whisper that carried more power than the storm. Covering his face with his mantle in holy reverence, Elijah stepped out to meet his Creator. In this intimate encounter, God did not just comfort him, he recommissioned him. He was told to return to the wilderness of Damascus and anoint the future, Hazael as king of Syria, Jehu as king of Israel, and a young man named Elisha as his prophetic successor. This divine strategy ensured that the mission of light would continue long after Elijah had departed. God revealed a hidden truth that shattered Elijah's loneliness. There were still 7,000 faithful souls in Israel whose knees had never bowed to Baal. Before we continue into the dramatic transition of the prophetic mantle, if you are finding strength in these stories of faith and divine justice, please support our mission. Subscribe to Bible Mysteries Africa right now, hit the notification bell, and like this video. Your support allows us to keep unveiling these sacred mysteries to the world. Armed with a new perspective, Elijah found Elisha, son of Shaphat, in the middle of a field, driving 12 yoke of oxen. In a symbolic act of destiny, Elijah threw his coarse mantle over the young man's shoulders. Elisha felt the weight of the call instantly. With a heart full of respect, he asked only to kiss his parents goodbye before embarking on a life of service. In a radical gesture of total commitment, Elisha slaughtered his oxen, used the wooden plowing equipment as fuel for a fire, and gave the meat to the people. He burned his past to embrace a future as a servant of the Most High. This was not a mere change of career. It was a transformation of the soul. While the mantle was being passed, the darkness in the palace of Ahab was reaching its zenith. The king's eyes fell upon a vineyard belonging to a righteous man named Naboth. Ahab wanted the land for a simple vegetable garden, but Naboth, honoring the ancestral laws of God, refused to sell his heritage. Ahab pouted in his palace like a spoiled child, but Jezebel, the architect of malice, took control. With a chilling cunning, she orchestrated a mock trial, using false witnesses to accuse Naboth of blasphemy. The innocent man was dragged out and stoned to death. As Ahab walked into the stolen vineyard to claim his prize, he found a familiar, terrifying figure waiting for him, Elijah. "Have you found me, O my enemy?" Ahab stammered. Elijah's voice rang out with the cold clarity of divine judgment. He prophesied the total annihilation of Ahab's house, a fate so grim that dogs would lick the blood of the king and the birds of the air would devour his kin. The corruption had reached its limit. Even the hardened Ahab was momentarily broken by the gravity of the curse, tearing his clothes and donning sackcloth in a rare show of repentance. Because of this, God in his infinite mercy delayed the disaster, but the wheels of justice were already in motion. Years later, the era of Ahab ended, and his son Ahaziah took the throne, carrying his father's rebellious spirit. When Ahaziah was injured in a fall, he turned to the pagan god Baal-zebub for answers. Elijah, instructed by an angel, intercepted the royal messengers with a scathing question. "Is it because there is no God in Israel that you go to inquire of the God of Ekron?" He declared that the king would never leave his bed alive. Furious, Ahaziah sent 50 soldiers to arrest the prophet, but Elijah, standing on a hill, called down fire from heaven that consumed the troops. A second group met the same fate. It was only when a third captain approached with genuine humility, pleading for his life on bended knee, that Elijah agreed to go. This encounter serves as a stark reminder. A disciple is not greater than his master, and the power of God is not to be trifled with by arrogant kings. The final chapter of Elijah's earthly mission arrived at the banks of the Jordan River. Accompanied by the loyal Elisha, who refused to leave his side despite 3 warnings to stay behind, Elijah struck the water with his mantle. The river parted, a final echo of the Exodus. On the other side, Elijah asked, "What can I do for you before I am taken?" Elisha did not ask for wealth or long life. He asked for a double portion of his master's spirit. As they walked and talked, a chariot of fire and horses of fire suddenly tore through the atmosphere, and Elijah was swept into heaven by a whirlwind. Elisha cried out in grief and wonder, watching his mentor disappear into the celestial realms. Picking up the fallen mantle, Elisha returned to the Jordan. He struck the water, crying, "Where is the Lord God of Elijah?" The waters parted again. The spirit of the master now rested on the student. From the execution of Jezebel and the house of Ahab by the sword of Jehu, to the countless miracles of healing and provision performed by Elisha, the legacy of fire continued. These stories are not just ancient echoes, they are mirrors of our own spiritual walk. They remind us that God is in total control, working through the wind and the whisper, through the fire and the mantle. Thank you for joining us on this epic journey through the lives of the prophets. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to Bible Mysteries Africa. Share this video with a friend who needs to be reminded of God's power today. May the fire of the Lord guide your path, and may you find the courage to pick up your own mantle. God bless you. In a moment of staggering spiritual gravity, King Ahab, the man who had led Israel into the darkest depths of idolatry, exhibited an unusual and profound change in attitude. He tore his royal clothes and put on sackcloth, a universal symbol of mourning and deep repentance. This sudden shift in behavior proved a timeless truth, that even in the most shadowed moments of a human soul, there is always room for a genuine return to the Creator. As Ahab humbled himself, it was confirmed once more that the power of God acting through Elijah was not just for destruction, but to lead hearts back to the light. Yet, despite this rare manifestation of royal repentance, the grand tapestry of the story did not end there. The divine power dynamics and interventions continued to unfold with relentless intensity, shifting focus toward the royal succession and the preservation of the prophetic legacy. As Ahab's era eventually reached its conclusion, his son Ahaziah ascended the throne, carrying the heavy baggage of his father's past. When Ahaziah was injured in a fall, instead of seeking the God who had answered by fire, he sought guidance from Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, willfully ignoring the God of Israel. In response, Elijah was instructed by an angel to confront the king's messengers, challenging their spiritual betrayal and announcing a direct divine judgment. Ahaziah would never recover, but would die on his bed. When the king heard the description of the hairy man with a leather belt, he knew instantly it was Elijah the Tishbite. In a desperate attempt to silence the prophet, Ahaziah sent a captain with 50 men to arrest him. Standing firm on a hill, Elijah declared that if he were truly a man of God, fire would descend. Twice the heavens opened and fire consumed the arrogant soldiers, proving that the authority of God's prophet stands far above the petty threats of earthly kings. It was only when a third captain approached with genuine humility, kneeling and begging for mercy, that the angel permitted Elijah to descend, showing that humility can alter the course of divine judgment even in the heat of confrontation. The narrative then shifts to a powerful reminder that divine justice always prevails over human machinations, as seen in the dark affair of Naboth's vineyard. Ahab's greed and Jezebel's murderous manipulation to steal a righteous man's heritage were met with a harsh, unyielding prophecy of destruction. This entire saga underscores God's mercy to the repentant, but also his commitment to protecting the innocent from corruption. It reminds us of a profound truth: a disciple is never greater than his master, and the cycle of rebellion seen in Ahaziah's reign only reinforced the need for a new era of prophetic leadership. As Elijah's earthly journey neared its final chapter, he and Elisha traveled together from Gilgal. Elijah, knowing his time was short, repeatedly tested Elisha's loyalty, urging him to stay behind. However, Elisha, a man of fierce dedication, refused to leave his master's side. At Bethel and Jericho, the sons of the prophets whispered about the coming departure, but Elisha remained focused and serene. Upon reaching the banks of the Jordan, Elijah performed one last miracle with his mantle. He struck the waters, and the river parted, allowing them to cross on dry ground, a symbolic passing into the sacred realm. On the opposite bank, Elijah asked the ultimate question: "What can I do for you before I am taken?" Elisha, seeking not wealth but the spiritual weight to lead a nation, asked for a double portion of his master's spirit. As they walked, a chariot of fire and horses of fire erupted from the sky, and in a whirlwind of celestial glory, Elijah was taken into heaven. Elisha cried out in grief, witnessing the transition of an age, and as he picked up the fallen mantle of Elijah, the apprenticeship ended and a new ministry began. After the ascension, Elisha returned to the Jordan, striking the water with the same mantle. When the river parted once more, it was clear the spirit of Elijah now rested on Elisha. In the city of Jericho, the sons of the prophets recognized this new spiritual authority with reverence. Despite a fruitless 3-day search for Elijah's body, the truth was undeniable. He was with the Lord. The prophetic word then moved like a storm through the house of Ahab, finding its fulfillment in the rise of Jehu. Acting as a sword of divine justice, Jehu eradicated the house of Ahab, eliminating the corruption of Jezebel and her associates in Jezreel with implacable zeal. On his way to Samaria, Jehu met the brothers of Ahaziah and executed them, ensuring no remnant of the old apostasy remained. He formed a strategic alliance with Jonadab, son of Rechab, a man known for his unwavering devotion, inviting him to witness his zeal for the purity of Israel. This was a crucial turning point, representing a national return to the fear of the Lord and the eradication of the Baals. The lives of Elijah and Elisha, mirrored in the fierce actions of Jehu, prove that God works through both prophets and kings to fulfill his judgments, highlighting the eternal importance of faithfulness. Their ministry remains a living testimony of divine intervention, teaching us that no aspect of our existence escapes the care and provision of the Almighty. Through these narratives, we are offered a profound view of the dynamic, mutual trust between God and his chosen ones. These stories tell us of miracles, yes, but they also expose the raw humanity, the vulnerability, the isolation, and the courage required to stand for truth. Elisha, inheriting the mantle, took on the responsibility of a nation, performing compassionate miracles like purifying the waters of Jericho and multiplying the widow's oil. He demonstrated that God's power is as much about mercy and provision as it is about judgment. This transition also illustrates the vital principle of mentorship. Just as Elijah prepared Elisha, we are called to invest in the next generation, ensuring that the flame of faith never flickers out. In a time when political corruption threatened the very soul of Israel, God intervened to reaffirm his sovereignty. He challenged the elite and provided for the poor, reminding us that he is the Lord of both the palace and the wilderness. These prophets encourage us to walk with God even through our own valleys of discouragement, knowing we are never alone. Their lives invite us to a deeper obedience and a more daring faith, confident that our labor in the Lord is never in vain. As we reflect on these timeless lessons, we see a call to spiritual growth and introspection. The stories of Elijah and Elisha are not just relics of the past, they are mirrors for our current journey, urging us to pursue holiness even when the culture turns away. Elijah's persistent prayer for rain and Elisha's unwavering loyalty are beacons for us today. They remind us that effective prayer is about the sincerity of the heart, and true greatness is found in humility. Despite the extraordinary miracles, they never sought glory for themselves, but always pointed to the majesty of the Father of lights. God's faithfulness, manifested in protection, provision, and correction, is the anchor of these stories. As we navigate our own trials, we can trust that the God of Elijah is our God too, never abandoning us in our time of need. Their legacy transcends the centuries, inviting us to live with audacious faith and a trust that cannot be shaken. May their lives transform ours, leading us to leave a legacy of obedience that impacts generations to come, for the glory of God and the advancement of his kingdom on earth. In this path of reflection, we reach a point of inflection where their story becomes ours. We are challenged to be bearers of light, standing firm in our convictions and using the resources God gives us to bless a broken world. If this epic journey of faith and fire has spoken to your spirit, I invite you to join our community at Bible Mysteries Africa. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the power of the living God. Together, let us explore the sacred mysteries and stand bold in the truth. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and may the double portion of God's blessing be upon you. The history of Israel was not merely written in the blood of kings, but in the divine fire that rested upon the shoulders of its prophets. The transition from the thunderous ministry of Elijah to the compassionate yet powerful reign of Elisha stands as one of the most significant moments in sacred history. This transition illustrates an immortal principle in God's work, the sacred law of succession and mentorship. Just as Elijah painstakingly prepared Elisha, choosing him from the fields of labor to the heights of spiritual authority, Elisha also invested heavily in the next generation. This was symbolized by the School of the Prophets, a sanctuary of wisdom where young men were trained to hear the whisper of the Almighty. This unbreakable chain of transmission, passing spiritual knowledge from the veteran to the novice, underlines the vital importance of preparing leaders who can carry forward God's mission. It ensures that his living word and his miraculous works continue to impact the world long after the first messenger has ascended. Furthermore, the epic saga of Elijah and Elisha serves as a masterclass in God's absolute sovereignty over every sphere of human existence. In an era when corrupt political power and spiritual apostasy threatened to divert Israel from its divine destiny, God did not remain silent. He intervened with overwhelming force to reaffirm his authority and his promises. Through his chosen prophets, God did not only challenge the arrogance of kings and the structures of pagan power. he also miraculously provided for the desperate needs of his people. Whether it was multiplying a widow's oil or purifying a poisoned spring, these acts remind us that no aspect of our daily existence escapes his watchful care and divine provision. The lives of these two men encourage us to remain unshakably faithful in our walk with God, even when we are surrounded by adversity and the cold winds of discouragement. Before we dive deeper into the mysteries of Mount Horeb and the Chariot of Fire, if you are being transformed by these revelations, take a moment to support our mission. Subscribe to Bible Mysteries Africa right now, hit the like button to spread the word, and share this video with someone seeking a double portion of faith today. Elijah and Elisha were not iron statues. They were men of flesh and blood who faced moments of deep, bone-weary discouragement and profound loneliness. Yet, in the hollow of the cave and the silence of the desert, they experienced God's comforting and strengthening presence. Their stories serve as a timeless reminder that even in the darkest, most isolated valleys of our experience, we are never truly alone. God is always with us, standing in the shadows, ready to renew our strength and guide us toward the horizon. The lives of Elijah and Elisha are a powerful, living testimony of God's relentless faithfulness to his servants and his people. They remind us that despite the chaotic challenges and the crushing uncertainties of life, we can trust that a higher power is operating in us and through us to fulfill divine purposes that we may not yet fully understand. They invite us to live lives of radical obedience, selfless service, and a faith so deep it can move mountains. They teach us that our work in the Lord is never in vain, and that, in the ultimate conclusion of all things, we will be witnesses of his glory and power manifested in our world. Thus, the stories of Elijah and Elisha offer us far more than mere historical accounts of miracles from ancient times. They provide timeless, universal principles applicable to our complex spiritual lives today. Each narrative, each miracle, and each agonizing trial faced by these prophets serves as a mirror. In this mirror, we can reflect on our own journeys of faith, learning from their stumbles and growing through their extraordinary experiences. One of the most resonant messages echoing through the centuries is the power of persistent prayer and total dependence on God. Both Elijah and Elisha lived in a state of constant, unbroken communion with the Creator. They sought his will and his direction at every single step, refusing to move without the cloud of his presence. This intimate relationship allowed them to act with a holy audacity and a confidence that defied human logic, even in the most life-threatening situations. They remind us that beyond our own limited capacities and frail intellects, it is in God's infinite strength that we find our true effectiveness and our highest purpose. Furthermore, the story of these prophets highlights the critical importance of moral and spiritual courage. In a time when true faith was being systematically erased by idolatry and social injustice, Elijah and Elisha stood firm. They were the wall against the tide, challenging the earthly and spiritual powers of their time with nothing but the word of truth. Their example inspires us today to take a stand for what is right, to defend the truth in a world of lies, and to live our lives with a righteousness that honors God even when we face fierce opposition or cold misunderstanding. The legacy of Elijah and Elisha also underlines the indispensable value of mentorship and discipleship. The transmission of wisdom is the lifeblood of the community of believers. Just as Elijah prepared Elisha to continue the work, we are called to invest in those who surround us, sharing our experiences and our faith so that the body of Christ is built up and strengthened from generation to generation. This is the heartbeat of Bible Mysteries Africa, ensuring the flame of truth never dies. Through every trial and every thunderous victory, we see the hand of God moving with precision to fulfill his purposes. Elijah and Elisha were not just instruments of their time, They are voices speaking to us now, encouraging us to live with a courage that refuses to bow to the Baals of our modern age. They invite us to look far beyond our current temporary circumstances and gaze upon the sovereignty of the eternal God. May their lives be a beacon of light for you, guiding you into a relationship with the God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. As we reflect on these giants of faith, we encounter a clarion call to introspection and spiritual growth. Their stories show us the hearts of men who, despite their weaknesses, sought God fervently. This pursuit of holiness in the midst of adversity challenges us to examine the quality of our own commitment. The perseverance of Elijah in praying for rain, a prayer that was not a passing thought but a deep, agonizing intercession, reminds us that effective prayer is about the sincerity of the heart. Humility remains the golden thread of their story. Despite calling fire from heaven and raising the dead, they never sought glory for themselves. They were merely the vessels. The glory belonged to the Father of lights. God's faithfulness, manifested in his protection of Elijah at the brook and his provision for Elisha in the siege, is our greatest comfort. As you face your own trials, remember that the God of Elijah is still on the throne. He never abandons his own. The lives of these prophets transcend the centuries to speak to your heart today. They invite you to live with audacious faith, persistent prayer, and an unbreakable trust. May their stories transform your life, leading you to leave a legacy that impacts not only your children, but the generations yet unborn. We are at a turning point where their legacy becomes your mirror. You are called to be a bearer of light, a holder of the torch in a world of moral relativism. Be firm, be just, and be holy. Just as Elijah confronted the false prophets and Elisha healed the broken, you are called to be an agent of change in your community. Thank you for traveling this sacred path with us. If this message of fire and faith has ignited something within you, please subscribe to Bible Mysteries Africa, like this video, and share it with those who need a reminder of God's sovereign power. Together, we will continue to unveil the mysteries of the Word and expand our understanding of the divine. Stay bold, stay faithful, and may the double portion of the Spirit guide you always. God bless you.